So by mistake I had to tie my hair there, and I pressed the stop button again, just like yesterday. So this is part 2, the second part of August 12. I was there at the corner and I tied my hair and I pressed the stop button, I guess, because I had it in the mouth, and I guess it touched, of course, the cords, and of course it stopped certain cords, and that is just something which we have to do, and we have to appellate. And that's just something which we gotta do, you know. And now is the second part of this special edition, Heatwave special edition, marching for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, all those fast food workers, special for the fast food workers today. I wish I could give my anonymous friend a house like that, because she deserves one. And here we are by the mountain on the other side. Mountain. You can see the rocks. See the rocks there on the mountain, and that's how we got a little bit of those rocks. And this is Mount Royal, but we're just gonna go by the side like this. So where we're gonna go is gonna go west. From the west, we're coming to the east like this, right? So you can see, of course, part of the rock formations here by the side. And these are, of course, the rocks of the mountain where we have it, how it goes up, because now we're on West Mountain, we're going on Mount Royal. So this being part 2, of course, of August 12. March, special march, of course, for the fast food workers, the plumbers, our brothers and sisters in uniform, you know, or the daycare workers, changing some diapers in the daycares, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, the construction workers. And it's 35 degrees. I never saw that before. 35 degrees today and yesterday. Something I never seen on my phone app, 35. I've seen 31 and 32, but never 35. And today I saw it again. Yesterday I saw it again. So strong heat wave, very hot day, very hot day. You can see it today. It's quite a heat wave, I guess, until tomorrow at 8 p.m. And enough of my face, I guess. You can glimpse there. And this is part 2, second part, marching to the mountain, always working out, training, exercising. And the first part, we discussed a little bit about my Asperger's condition, and we discussed that we finalized it by transitioning into a geopolitical discussion. So we're gonna picked up where we left off in part 1, where we was at the discussion surrounding geopolitics. As you know, geopolitics, I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist, and of course it is my special interest as somebody who lives with Asperger's. That is what we do, or engage, of course, in special. We're engaged, of course, in 24/7 engagement in geopolitics, and always in the sun a little bit, maybe put a little bit of that sunscreen, super important to hydrate and wait, of course. And of course it's 24/7 for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, and the electricians, the welders, and all those construction workers got to take on that hydration, HYDRATE. I got 4 seconds, of course, to cross, and got to get it for the crossing. Prudence, still turn your head left and right, because you never know. What if the citizen driver presses the accelerator instead of the brake? Somebody presses the accelerator instead of the brake, or the brakes malfunction. You always have to take your due diligence, and of course make sure that you cross the street prudently and safely, because we also have pedestrians and cyclists and brothers and sisters on the bike. So as we have added responsibilities, duties, and obligations in the public, which we do not have in our own quarters. If I would have stayed home in my small, humble dragon's lair, I would have had less responsibilities, less obligations than other citizens. Would have not had the same, of course, and would have not been the same, you know, if I would have stayed home. And that's that red, my favorite color, with a little bit of that Montreal tour. And that's Montreal downtown. You can see the big, beautiful skyscrapers. Always saluting those who build the skyscrapers, and we're going to continue building skyscrapers. Who build skyscrapers across the 63 today, for the 10, the 50, and the 3. Always for the 63, we got to put it on. Always for the construction workers, the welders, the plumbers, the electricians, the bus drivers. Salutations, LOV to the bus drivers, all the workers, and the plumbers, the bakers baking some bread, and I do admire if you can do a construction workers. I will to build the 4, the forgotten goddess geodss temple. Credit those builders, construction workers with trillions of kisses. With I will to build the forgotten goddess temple, and of course the North American people's Imperial Coliseum. The North American people's Imperial Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, Caesar's Palace, which was known of course as the Louisiana Superdome, and before that as the Mercedes-Benz. It changed names several times, just like I changed name officially. Still gotta pay with that money. Still gotta pay with that money. But of course, still gotta pay. But let's build it to be 11 times that mega structure where my 49ers lost in Super Bowl 47, which has several nicknames. Super Bowl 47 is also known as the Hardball Ball, Brawl Ball, where my 49ers lost. Not by a lot, by 3 points to the Ravens. It's one of my top 5 Super Bowls, and we're gonna build a major Imperial Coliseum structure where me and Donald Trump we're gonna fight in a boxing match. Because I've been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since Donald Trump made the mistake to impose tariffs on Canada. That's not the way to invite us by tariffs, to invite Canadians to join the union, Granddaddy Trump. And this Quebecer, Canadian Quebecer, and who was born in the United States 3 times post 1776, once as a woman, twice as a man. And when I was born as a man, in my previous reincarnations, past lives, as you get that 50-50 now due to sometimes being born in past lives, previous incarnations, past lives, as a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, and you get that 50-50 now. And of course, that's what I am, and that's what I get that rock and roll for. And there's just something which we have to do internally and outwardly, and build together on the Canadian-US border this biggest ever sports arena complex where me and Donald Trump we're gonna inaugurate it and fight in a boxing match. And in the backpack there that I got those red gloves, auctioning them and auctioning everything that I'm wearing, of course, to my anonymous friend, gifting me of course those red gloves, auctioning the underwear, boots, auctioning those red gloves which were donated actually, a gift from my anonymous friend back in 2018. I already put them to good use, and we'll continue to boxing them in the coming days and weeks and months ahead. And that's just part of the Dragon versus Trump now. Special March, April 12th. This special edition is dedicated always to my allies and armies. Pledge your allegiance. But now specifically to the fast food workers, due to the fact that every week I'm gonna do a review of how many views I get. I don't do it for the views though, I ever do it for the likes, and never for LOV and justice and for my allies and armies. And I got 1,000 views on the 3 hamburgers. I ate 3 hamburgers, and of course I posted the 11-second video, and I got the most likes. I got the most likes on that video, and compared to all other videos, I got the most likes on that video. And that is just something which I gotta do, and something which I gotta sing about, and also gotta be of course mindful in the go, and mindful as I do it now. And here gonna cross the street safely, prudently, because you never know, sometimes the sun blocks the view, so if the sun blocks the view of somebody, he might not be able to see properly. And here you gotta get prudence, because really they're supposed to stop here. See, this is supposed to be a stop sign, actually, not a stop per se, but you can stop there with the go, and that's better if you stop there the car, because it's a hospital here, and you got people transitioning and crossing the street. And actually that is supposed to be a stop, that is supposed to be somewhere where it stops. And it's encouraging for me to see people who do actually stop and give priority to the pedestrians, because now I'm in the public, so I have added responsibilities, duties and obligations. And the added responsibilities, duties and obligations of course are different for me as an individual, and for you and for us, and is different responsibilities and duties and obligations which we have to appellate and we have to integrate with our mindfulness. And of course, in the point that I am here in the sphere of the public, if I would have stayed home, I would have have had less responsibilities, duties, and obligations, and it would have been less and less responsibilities, duties, and obligations. If I am now, it would have been, of course, less. I have more responsibilities, duties, and obligations as I am now here, you know, as I am now here. And of course, being that I am now here in the public, there's added responsibilities, duties, and obligations for me, right? And of course, added responsibilities, duties, and obligations for me, as it is for you. So we have reciprocity, and my responsibilities, duties, and obligations are increased due to the fact that I am now in the public. So we got the private, myself as a private citizen, sovereign, imperial individual, and you, the rest. I'm being that I'm part of this tiny small community of neurodivergence, but we always have to build bridges with you, the neurotypicals, and I don't have antagonistic feeling sentiments vis-a-vis you, the 99.56%. You can feel the difference right when you step in here from the heat wave. It's a heat wave today. Anybody want to finance that I go up and down these stairs? We're heading straight for that hydration, HYDRATE, and then we're going to check the budget and see if we can get some hamburgers for dinner on the way back. Tuesday, August 12th. Special March, Dancing Goddess, Special March. Feel good. Now still made it to my second home. These beautiful roots. To my second home. The mountain, Mount Royal, proper, the Three Peak Mountain System. I love to come here, and I've been coming here for years and years and years and years, you know. Aspies, we have these ritual-like routines, and they're repetitive and quite repetitive, you know. And so for me, coming to the mountain, it's like coming to my second home, and I breathe the nice air here and clean my lungs and meditate and always do geopolitics and rock and roll. Always rock and roll for my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money, for the firefighters, for the butchers, for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the truckers, for those plumbers and electricians, for the firefighters, and for all those engaged in the production and distribution of food. And that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling on the go, and we gotta of course get that hydration, and we gotta get on that plumbing, and we gotta get in doing on the now, and we gotta always turn our heads left or right, either if we're here, because sometimes we got my brothers and sisters, fellow citizens on their bike, so we have to concord that prudence. Is now I got a cold, I'm not cold, but a cool breeze. It's a bit of a coolness in the air, and you know, I got my fellow cousins, family there on the bench, and all North Americans, my great family, and all who come to join us. I am just gonna focus on geopolitics now, because this is part 2, and we got a big introduction about who I am in the first part, and my aspiness, me being androgynous, pansexual, and how I got retrograde amnesia memory. I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014, spring 2014, which is where summer 2025, so that's more than 11 years and 4 months, and always appellate all the appellations, of course, when we are now, and when we do, and when we interact with each other. That I have to, of course, restate and restart and re-say, of course, the dominion and the appellation which we engage in, and which we do, and which we, of course, transmute. And the transmutations, of course, is something which I gotta go up. See, this is where the majority of the population hangs in. And of course, you can see, of course, how steep it is. That's why my auntie goes on that bike, and it's steepness when you go, when you go on the down, and that's when you go on the up and down with that. And that's, of course, what we have to do, and it's something which we have to get on the drills with that. And we gotta get on that satisfactory moment now, as we are here, in this wilderness, my second home, Mountain Mile Royal, to discuss geopolitics. So leave the baggage at the door. I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, strategist, and of course my strategies, of course, are for the North American Collective, or what I call the North American Collective Civilizational Complex, the North American Civilizational Complex, and of course that is what it is with that. So of course now today the array where we are is exactly the point where how I predicted it in a parallel manner, not detail by detail, but in a general overall manner. It is unfolding as how I predicted this world will unfold since October 2019, just before I had COVID, and I'm triple vaxxed. Like, COVID for me was like death, pestilence, and disease. I really thought I was gonna die between February 2020 and March 2020. Here I am, lost between 80 and 93 pounds, got out of depression and accepted my difference in Asperger's, this neurological mental divergent condition. And of course, it is something which we have to do together in the sphere of where we are. Here in my second home, the mistress, to discuss geopolitics. So in 2019, October, November, I predicted what's happening now back in October 2019. So keep that in mind. October 2019, I predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration. Predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration. And so made, created, and produced my workout, which I was discussing right before. By mistake, the stop button was played, and by my mistake, the stop button was played. By mistake, and that is what it is with that. And so we gotta operate in our circumstantial prepositions of where we find ourselves today to be. So of course I have predicted what's happening now back in October 2019. You have to keep that in mind. In 2019, I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration on the horizon. So that is something which you have to keep in mind constantly when I will discuss geopolitics in a general manner. So my main predictions were based on several layers of academic, intellectual, more cosmopolitan geopolitical studies and analysis and theoretical revisions. But one of the main general points was, of course, that it is, of course, or was, the point and the fact was that is and was the conclusion, or the factorial, was that due to the fact that many nation states, civilizational complexes, were not fully able to resolve their conflicts dating from the 20th century, specifically from the Cold War period and era, that these conflicts were about to restart in the 21st century and intensify. So if you look at the world, the main conflicts which have reignited with much intensity and ferocity and more bloodshed is, of course, Russia-Ukraine is a conflict which dates from the Second World War, the Cold War period, which lasted between March 1947 and December 1991. To be precise, I say 44 years and 9 months, although I say almost 45 years. Now some say between 1946 and end of 1991, December 26, 1991. Some say 45 years, 46 years, or more. Well, I'm willing to make a little of a compromise. It's not 100%. There's no geopolitical consensus by historians, political scientists on that specific duration. But it lasted at least 44 years and 9 months. So I'm willing to say almost 45 years, more than 44 years and 9 months, which is a long time, from early 1947 till the end of 1991, because the perestroika, Gorbachev's dissolution of the Soviet Empire, occurred by decree December 26th, 1991, right? Christmas, if you will, 25th, 26th of December, some end of December, end of the year, 1991. 1 week left in 1991, so we could say the end of 1991. So that's the timeline of the Cold War, approximately, right? Some say 46 instead of 47. I'm willing to accept that. I'm not gonna figure exactly, give or take. The point is that it lasted a long time, right? More than 44 years, right? That's the point, nonetheless. So if you look at Russia, Ukraine is a conflict from the Cold War period. Israel-Hamas conflict now, Gaza, Hamas was founded in the 80s, 1980s, in the 1980s, and of course it took 20 years for them, of course, to reach power, to reach full power. It took them about 20 years until 2007, 2007, June, July, a few weeks of the civil war of Gaza. So it took them 20 years to reach power since after their foundation in, I believe it was 1988 or 1986, 86, 87, in the 80s, 1980s, before the Berlin Wall fell, that's for sure. That I can say that it was before the fall of the Berlin Wall in November 9th, 1989, November 9, 1989. So it was either 1986, 87, or 88 that Hamas was founded. Organization was Hamas. China, the People's Republic of China and Taiwan, the ROC also are a conflict which dates from that period. Their conflict also is older. Dates from the 20th century. Pakistan and India is again a conflict which dates again from that period after the dissolution of the British Empire and the partition of India, right, in Pakistan, and then Pakistan split in Bangladesh, right, in 71 or something like that. Gotta double check, 60. But Bangladesh and Pakistan were one country for a few years. In 1947, Pakistan split, right, from India. It derated and India split, gained independence. And what was Pakistan and Bangladesh and India was all British. India was all British territory before 1947. So that's always also the Cold War, the 20th century. So that conflict was a few weeks ago, Pakistan and India, right? Which they both have nuclear arms, just like the Taiwan People's Republic of China, and Taiwan is known as the ROC officially. The ROC, the ROC, ROC, Republic of China, Republic of China. The ROC, Republic of China, the Republic of China. So that is something which you have to appellate, and of course you have to administrate in all the understandings of my prediction of what I said that is going to happen. In a general manner, I predicted an international conflagration back in 2019 based on several parameters. What I did not predict, however, was, and this I have to be honest, was that there will be problems between United States, and of course Canada, between Canada and the United States, between the United States and Canada. between the United States and Canada. So I did not predict that there's going to be a conflagration between the United States and Canada. That there's going to be a deterioration of relations. So I predicted an international conflagration in World War III, but specifically what this is new for me as well to take into account as I have to adjust, I guess, my geopolitical theories and relations and everything, the work that I do as an independent geopolitical thinker and philosopher and analyst, theorist and strategist. But my strategies are, of course, for the North American Collective. So the deterioration of relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA due to the new tariffs, which have augmented increase since August 1st, and the new ones of 2025 that began in April, and thus subsequently our response thereafter. This I did not predict. I have to be honest. I did not predict that we're gonna have Canada-United States trade war and Canada-United States diplomatic crisis and Canada-United States problems, the problems which we have now. But now we have them, and this is new for me. But this statement, which I'm going to make now in geopolitics, you have to accord in the positive affirmative with a yes, 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 yes. So this statement is not negotiable. You cannot say no to it. At least when it's relating to foreign affairs. I'm not discussing domestic internal affairs. And this applies for both Canada vis-a-vis the United States and the United States vis-a-vis Canada. So our main economic, social, financial, commercial, military, defense interest is for Canadians vis-a-vis the United States, vis-a-vis the United States. When it comes to foreign affairs, we have to place, in other words, we have to place as the number one strategy, as the number one strategies, as the number one political strategy, that is when it comes to foreign affairs, as the number one interest, which we have to get it, of course, to be as the number one strategist. Of course, we have to get, of course, in the appellation, of course, where we have to do it on the go, and we have to be appellated on the side of the things where we have it. That's how we have to get doing with that, and that's how we have to get appellated, and we have to get on the go with that, and we have to go do it on the go, and we have to get drilling on those left and right, and the formulations, of course, of all the things which we have to be, and we have to get translation with that, and that's how we have to get a little bit of hydration there. You get a little bit of that heat, and that hotness, and we gotta get a little bit of hydration before we continue, of course, to get, of course, the affirmation and the positivity from drinking this water. Thank you, those who did the water, building of the water fountains, for us, me, you, and us to have this water. It's really quite a privilege of civilization right here atop the mountain. You see, we got that Canada tatted up, and we got that Canada on the go, and we gotta get that Canada for the left, for the right, and for the go, and that's how we have to get doing on that, and we have to get that appellation, to get it on the drill, and we have to get on those things where we have to implement, and where we have to get on the hydration, of course, to get it on those levels of the hydration where we got on this heat wave. We have to hydrate appropriately, and of course HYDRATE in 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yeah, so that's what we have to do, and that's what we have to be doing on that, you know. So something which we have to be doing, man, you know. That's what we have to be doing on that, and we have to get doing on those drills, man, and something which we have to get the call to get it on those love things of God, and we have to get doing on that love side of things, and we got doing on the love side of things, and that's of course something which I have to of course admit that I have not predicted the current deterioration of relations with the United States. I did not predict. So in many ways, this is also new for me. This is also new for me. Also new for me. Also new for me. And that's what it is. And that's how we gotta get on that goal, you know. And I did not predict, you know, that's the current situation where we have, and current situation where we have to be doing, of course, and all the world where we are today, and all the matters where we are at hand, and the typicalness of all our interactions where we are now truly, and where we go, and how we of course develop ourselves, and how we constitute our common civilization. We have to affirm, of course, in the positive, this following statement which I'm about to make now. So there's no way out of this following statement which I'm about to make. You cannot, of course, you cannot say no to it. You can only say yes. So our main interest as Canadians, my brothers and sisters in the USA as well, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other, reciprocally, when it comes to foreign affairs. So I'm not discussing external affairs. I'm discussing only external affairs. I'm not discussing domestic internal affairs. When it comes to external affairs, our main objective is, of course, to have the best, most cordial relations, economic relations, defense relations, sports relations, social cultural relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA, and vice versa. That applies reciprocally for the United States vis-a-vis us, and us vis-a-vis the United States. That is just like the pi constant. The pi, of course, is the N symbol. The N is represented, the pi symbol 3.1416, and it's always that number. It's always 3.1416. It always represents, of course, the circle, the circumference vis-a-vis the circle, and the relation between the ratio, the diameter, and the circle. It's always 3.1416. It's a constant. It's a pi. Here it's an N, the letter N. N for Normand, N for Normandy, N for neurodivergent, or N for neutral or natural. So it's always 3.1416. It's what's in mathematics, we call that a constant. It's not a variable. A variable changes. So thus I'm making the comparison parallel to geopolitics as how we cannot change this geopolitical fact regardless of all other considerations, that due to the fact of our geographical position, how we are situated geographically, and our social cultural history, because of the history, that we have to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with the United States. And the United States vis-a-vis us, it has to be reciprocity. There have to be, it's the same, right? So it's for us vis-a-vis them, and for them vis-a-vis us. So this is always so. It's always so. So it's not a variable, it's a constant. This does not change. It's always so. It's not, doesn't change, hasn't changed for decades, and it will not change, of course, in the coming years, decades, or whatever the case may be. So it is so, it was so, it is so, and it will be so in the coming days, years, and months ahead, in the coming years, whatever the case may be. So it is so today, it will be so tomorrow, for the coming decades. So thus, you have to say yes, 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 yes to that. You cannot negotiate that declaration, that statement. That is a geopolitical fact. That is a reality. So when it comes to foreign affairs, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial, economic, social, cultural, financial, defense relations with each other. There's no way around it. 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 Us to have the best, most cordial economic, social, cultural, military, political relations with each other. There's no there's no maybe. It always is so. It was so at least since the dissolution of the British Empire post Second World War. It is so today and will be so for the coming many decades, unless we achieve a world federation, and then these geopolitical regions will have less of the same influence. But due to the fact that we're surrounded by two oceans, we have borders with the United States only. Although the United States has borders with Mexico, the United States' primary interest when it comes again to foreign affairs, as the primary is we are to put in a hierarchical importance level of with whom to have the best economic, social, financial, military, defense relations. For Canada, it is that we must have with the United States, and the United States that the United States must have with us. So somebody not only who was born in the United States 3 times post 1776, served in the same United States Armed Forces post 1776, once as a woman I was born a woman here between 1688 and 1735. I was born right there several times as a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man. That's how you get that 50-50 now, and that's how we come a little bit to check a little bit of that city here, Montreal City. And once again, of course, our most important relation is to have the most cordial economic relation with each other. That's just what it is. Here we're gonna check a little bit of the city. See, that's my favorite skyscraper, the pyramid there. See the pyramid, and you can see the river. So we're surrounded by a big river, and those are the mountains there in the far away. That's Saint Bruno, Mont Saint Hilaire. But those mountains are actually miles away, kilometers away actually. Many miles and many kilometers away. So here's a great city, Montreal Hawk Island, and there you got, of course, the river. You got the big pyramid. It's not that big, but we got a pyramid of our own here in Montreal Hawk Island. So I'm just gonna stretch a little bit, because here's a good stretching for my legs, and sing some rock and roll and finish a little bit of that geopolitics right here. So once again, for both Canada and United States, thus it is the reality, just like that pi symbol represented by the two-headed, two-faced. It's like two heads to it's an N, the letter N with two heads, type of, like on each side it has a head, and on the other it has two heads. It's the letter N for Normandy, neurodivergent, natural, or Normandy, whatever. The letter N with two heads or two faces, two-headed N. And of course, that is just how our coming empire will be, by fusing Canada and United States in the compendium via my trinity of theories, of course, the CIT, the DRT, the Detrofusion theory, and the DFT, the democratic fusion, to make them into the complex only for the 10, the 50, and the 3. And of course, is something which we have to appellate here for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, and all those, of course, in the production, distribution of food. That's what we got to do. And see, we got to get all that, of course, naturalness out of the river there, the big river which surrounds this Hawk Island, Montreal. Gotta say salutations to the truckers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, nurses. If you come here, learn some French, because we're in La Belle Province, so we gotta love it. So our main interest is just like that constant pi, that is a never-changing variable. For now, it's not gonna change. It's a constant, and of course, that is just the constant of the realization of that appellation, that N is, of course, the natural. So we're going to have just like that two-headed N. We're going to have our coming empire in a two-headed manner, of course, which is going to be appellative of the truth of the matter that I said in the geopolitics, that our main interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, democratic, military, defense relations with the United States. And that is just what it is here. And that is, of course, the pyramid, my favorite skyscraper there, the pyramid. It's a beautiful city, and it's surrounded by a river. See, it's a big river. It's surrounded by that big river. So this is Montreal, Hawk Island, and we gotta get on that go. So see, that is the beautiful place, and that is where we have it. So see, there it is, the beautiful pyramid, and that's what it is. And here it is, Hawk Island, and that's all we have to get doing. And for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, and all those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's what it is, and that's why we are here on the go for all those involved now, for the cheeseburgers and fast food workers and plumbers. And we love our firefighters, love our bakers, love our nurses, love our doctors, love, of course, all those involved, all, of course, to get their cheeseburgers, and factory workers, and the plumbers, and the welders, and the electricians, and all those, of course, who are now involved in the production and the distribution of food. We gotta send them some loving as I stretch, always for the 10, the 50, and the 3, and always, of course, integrally for all the manifestation of our collective North American civilization, where we got the plumbers and all the doctors, the firefighters, nurses, those in the daycares who change some diapers now. Think about that. All the work which is being done now across the collective. And here is the big city, Metropolis Island, 2.5 million people just on the island, surrounded by a big river. And of course, it's something which we have to be doing on that, and we have to doing on the appellation, of course, of all the organizational aspects of our civilizational complex that we have to fuse, just like that. And our empire will have two heads, two faces, two heads, of where we're going to manifest. And of course the 10, the 50, and the 3. And that is something which we have, of course, to appellate, as we have, of course, all our manifestation in the jurisprudence, and of course the total understanding, the total absorption of what I just said, 100%, that we have to have the best, most cordial relations with the United States, vice versa, vis-a-vis us. Of course, it's something which we have to get doing and build. See, they're building more skyscrapers, so thus we're gonna build together the 10, the 50, and the 3, and the inclusion, of course, of our Imperial Republican force, and of course something which we have, of course, to do, and we have to do on that. And that is just have something which we have to get doing on that. Is something which we have to appellate, and of course to totally include in all our thinking from now on, that our politicians from the right and from the left to do, and of course to appellate, of course, all our civilization of all our differences here have to be resolved by just implementing and of course appellating that inclusion, of course, in the North American collective civilizational complex, the Imperial Republic, of course. So what we have to do and what we have to appellate, and of course in all our instructions and all our categories, of course, where we are and where we do, of course, in all our dealings with each other, it is that we have to confluently unite and get rid of the border as soon as we can, and especially via my DRT theory, that is the debt fusion theory, concomitantly, that integral part of our civilizational complex, that reciprocity, just like that constant N with two-headed N, the two-headed, two-faced N, our coming empire being the fusion of Canada and the United States will have sort of that two heads, two faces to it, or two heads, two faces to the Imperial Republic. And that is just where we're gonna finish it off for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, and we're gonna discuss the DRT now before we switch it to that French, because we're La Belle Province. I came a little bit, of course, of a pit stop here, just a few minutes, and of course we're gonna continue down now from the mountain, atop the mountain, Mount Royal, my second home here, the mistress on the mountain, and we're gonna continue down the road as we're gonna appellate and of course and continue our march from the side to the sidelines, and from this top here where there's a great space, you can check all this beauty and come visit with us and learn some French. So pledge your allegiance to our family. Let's rock and roll. So now we're gonna go, of course, in a zigzag, or in a manner, of course, which we can go like this. So of course, it doesn't really matter how we go. We can go by any side which we have to, and any side which of course allows us to be and to go, and of course to appellate that, of course, all the dictums, of course, where we have to be, and when we have to, of course, include ourselves with others who are visiting the space, and always be as accustoming and hospitality as we can, of course. So just like that, pie, our main interest, of course, is to have the best, most cordial relations with the United States. There's no way around that. There's no way around that. So that is, of course, just how it is. You cannot negotiate with that. You cannot negate that. You cannot negotiate. You cannot negate. And you cannot say no to. You cannot say no. You cannot say no to. And you cannot negate that. Our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. With each other. Our best, most cordial relations with each other. With each other. That is just the best way which we can do it together. So just like that, N has sort of the two faces, two heads to it. So of course our coming Imperial fusion will have, in many ways, there two faces, two heads type of dictum to it. So now I'm going to discuss the DRT, the debt refusion theory. The DRT, we have to implement the DRT, debt refusion theory. The DRT has to be implemented. Why do I make that statement? Because we got 4 and it has to be implemented binationally. By the way, Canada and United States joins because we got 4 main problems for both the United States and Canada, which affect us, which affect both Canada and the United States. And those main 4, in whatever chronology order you want to place them, whether the first, second, third are intermingled with the 4th, as the first or second or the third for an individual sovereign citizen to the other, you have of course to make sure that it is so. So we got these 4 problems, and that's why the DRT, which is part of my bipolar geopolitical strategy for the total BTD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world by the fusion of Canada and United States into the Republican Imperial Republican complex, not to be confused with bipolar and bipolarity as in the psychiatric psychological condition. When I refer about my bipolar strategy, it refers to North America, Canada, United States fusing together via implementing my mass public-private partnership dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdoms, trinity of theories, which is manifesting as the DRT, the debt refusion theory, DRT, debt refusion theory, DFT, democratic fusion theory, and the DRT, and the CIT, citizen integration theory, and the DFT, debt refusion theory, and the democratic fusion theory, and the DRT, debt refusion theory, and the CIT, citizen integration theory, parallel with the DFT, democratic fusion theory, and the CIT, citizen integration theory. And of course, that is of course the complementary and cooperative institutions which we have to create together. The Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial integrated dancing with the Imperial integrated security and service and defense force with the security service and defense force. And that's what it is, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta go down on the go, you know. So that is something which we have to be doing, you know, and that is something which of course we have to appellate in order strategies where we have of course to get doing, and something which we have to get on the left, right, Z, to get it on the X, Y, Z for the appellation of the citizens. And of course the DRT, debt refusion theory, for the creation of the U is something which of course has to be as the strategy for the North American collective. Excusez-moi, je vais te passer par là. So the DRT is of course the strategy which of course has to be appellated. So of course the debt refusion theory is of course the theory which has to be integrated, you know. Integrated. You gotta watch for branches here, you know. See all the branches here. Guys, be careful, eh? There's branches falling here sometimes, eh? You're welcome. Just the longer you stay, the faster you go, you're safer, but if it starts to be windy, just be careful. Hey, because there's branches like this one. See this one? Look at this. You don't want this falling on your heads. That's why we should put, see, look at that. Look at that. You don't want that falling on you, buddy. So that's why here, you know, I even have it on film. I was here and it fell right there. I gotta watch out, man. Gotta watch out for my fellow cousins, you know. Gotta get it on the go, you know, and gotta get it on do with that, and gotta get it on that drill, you know, and we're gonna get it on that rock and roll, you know, to get the appellation, you know, with the drill, you know. So that's what we have to do, and that's how we have to appellate, of course, in the considerable appellations of where we are to do, you know, together now. It's something where I gotta be mindful, because that's what I always see, like branches like this. I gotta let my family know, here it is. See, we got that branch, and you don't want that falling on you. Now it's kind of windy, but if they were gonna stop there, you know, maybe they stopped and pit stop. I always gotta let them know that there's a little bit of a risk. And here, let's build the forgotten goddess temple, the pyramid, house of the dragon, and we should put some signs, you know. Oh, somebody said that workout. I guess tomorrow, hey, tomorrow we're gonna come work out here. Tomorrow is the day with those 4 and these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe less with this one, maybe. Yeah, okay, tomorrow's the day. Okay, tomorrow's the day, not the day, heat wave. Tomorrow's gonna cool off a bit. So that's what we're gonna get doing on that, to get drilling and getting on that left, right side. And that's what we have to do, of course, in the familiar where we have to be on that appellation to get drilling on that. So the DRT now explained as possibly as we have to do, you know, the death refusion theory, you know, to appellate and of course to consume and integrate fully, of course, in our psyches and in what we must do, because it's about doing it, it's about putting it into practice. That is my DRT, death refusion theory. And inside my DRT, inside the DRT is integrated monetary integration theory, monetary integration theory, you know. So if you come here again, be watching, because cracked branches sometimes are about to fall and you're at risk. The more you stay here, the more you're at risk. When you're on the bike, if you go fast, if you don't stop in a spot, you stop in a spot like the 4 my cousins there were, the whole family were, the more at risk you are. If it starts to be windy, you know, you have to be careful so that you don't have branches like that falling on you, or like this one, see? That's why I always warn in my videos, you don't want branches falling on you, because the trees are not healthy, and they're getting healthier now, which we plant, but you know, I'd rather be people seeing people work out, trying to exercise, and loving and kissing and hugging, and doing the bikes, doing the cycling, doing the push-ups, doing the workout, doing the fitness, than hurt, you know, because that's just me. I don't like violence, and I lived myself. I was viciously attacked by surprise. I hit my head on the concrete, had a dislocated right arm, and was bloodied up. So I don't like violence. I am hyper vigilant though, and due to my Asperger's, I'm different. But my difference has blessed us with the DRT, paradoxically, the death refusion tree, to save us, both Canada, United States, and even the world from Armageddon, even the world from Armageddon. The DRT, the DRT, the DRT, the DRT, the death refusion theory. The DRT, the death refusion theory. The DRT for both Canada and United States, the 4, you know, the 4, DRT, the death refusion theory, of course, for the creation of the UE, the death refusion theory, you know, the DRT. DRT stands for death refusion theory. Inside the DRT, the death refusion theory is integrated monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. So of course it was implemented in the European Union, and of course that was the doing of the European Union. So back to what I was saying, and how I was saying, of course, that it was implemented in the European Union was something, of course, that we have, of course, to prudentially implement, because simultaneously, binationally for Canada and United States, due to 4 main economic financial commercial problems that are affecting the majority of both my brothers and sisters in both Canada and the United States across the 10, the 50, and the 63. And these four are the growing cost of living. The prices are going up for bread, for butter, for cheese, for milk, for the goods. Stagnation of the salaries, growing cost of rents. Even my rent went up, but I can't complain because I'm going to say it is between $6 minimum and $10. So either 6 or 10 maximum, or in between. But for me, I can't really complain because I say that it is between what would be allowable in my book. So I'm not going to complain. Although my rent cost, because I rent, went up again. And I guess the fourth, or in whatever order you put these four, would also be the growing cost of rent, parallel to the growing cost of living, the goods, the prices of cheese, butter, milk, bread, price of meat is increasing, stagnation of the salary, the 3 and the 4, and in whatever order again you put them, the growing credit card debt, record credit card, somebody even now swiping that credit card across Montreal, Quebec, across from Montreal to San Francisco somewhere, buying with the credit card across the shops or whatever purchasing they're making from the credit card. So that is just the truth and the fact. That is just the truth and the fact. That is just the truth and the fact. So don't leave that trash there. Is it Canadian? I don't mind you are drinking, you know. I don't mind you drinking, but this has to be recycled because it can kill a bunny rabbit, a squirrel, a chipmunk, a raccoon, a beaver, or other flora and fauna, you know. So it's brewed in Canada, Guelph, Ontario. That's good. And what is it? I don't drink much, me. 5%, so I guess it's light. I'm not a connoisseur of beer. I have a beer, I have to drink it. I really have to drink that beer because I had it since last year, Union made, and it got cracked a bit. So I guess this in 4 days from now, by today's Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, by Saturday, Sunday latest, I'm gonna have to drink it, if not Sunday per se. So the DRT, we have to implement it. We have no choice really but to implement my DRT or something similar to my DRT as the solution, because these problems are increasing, right? The salaries are stagnated. We see more and more strikes, right? We see more and more strikes. So that is something which of course we have to include and we have to appellate, and of course we also have to think about as a public-private partnership, fundamentally part of my dream and part of my bipolar geopolitical strategy. Again, not to be confused with bipolar as in the psychological condition. So we have to, we have to, of course, implement it and, of course, integrate it in the plurality of where we are. So the debt refusion tree includes monetary integration too. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. Right? My $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000. All the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, including my $10,000, we're gonna add up together, and we're going to convert all the public-private debt of Canada into US dollars. So all the public-private debt of Canada, we're gonna convert it into US dollars, right? What is that? I guess it's the bird cheering for a dragon. I'm not sure what that is. I can't see it. Are you cheering for a dragon? My only fan, I guess. Maybe. What a beauty though. Hey, choo, choo, choo. Like laser-like. So all the public and the private debt, we're gonna, of course, all convert it into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the US dollar, right? We're gonna add it together with the public-private debt of the United States, because it has to be implemented again. Canada, United States, joint Canada, United States. We have to implement it together. It has to be implemented together, both Canada, United States. We have to implement my DRT binationally, because those 4 problems which I mentioned, which are hitting, striking, affecting, touching the majority of the Canadian and my brothers and sisters in the USA, which are the growing cost of rents, stagnation of the salary, increase in credit card indebtedness, and the growing cost of living. Those 4 in whatever order for different individuals, it varies, but generally those are the 4 for the massive majority, including myself. Although I don't have a credit card, but I do have a credit line, so I do have debt, $10,000 in my case. So all the public-private debt of Canada converted into US dollars, added with the public-private debt of the United States, all that money will be the initial money supply for a new central bank. We're going to issue a new currency, which we're going to call, of course, the UE. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE, this new currency, we're going to create a new central bank. This new currency, the UE, we're going to have the value of the US dollar. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. So we're going to create this new currency, the UE, the universal exchange. And I'm just going to stretch my hips a bit. So the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, before I go down. So the universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar, the value of the US dollar, the value of the US dollar. So the universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar, of the United States dollar. The universal exchange unit, we're going to have the value of the US dollar, the universal exchange unit, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, the universal exchange unit, the UE, the universal exchange unit, the UE, which is going to have the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level of 10%. We're not going to be able to have and charge more than 10%. It's going to be 10% maximum. 10% maximum, 10% maximum, 10% maximum on that. So that is what is going to be 10% maximum. Is going to be 10% maximum. We can have lower than 10, but not more than 10. So 10% maximum, that is going to be the interest charged as a maximum. So this is going to be a new financial sort of reality for all the debt, all the loans thereof, a 10% maximum. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. So we're going to take all the public-private debt of Canada, United States, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the public and the private debt of Canada, we're going to convert it into US dollars, We're going to add it with the US public-private debt. We're going to create a new central bank, wherever the Imperial Republican Central Bank. We're going to create the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unity. The UE, the universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. Going to set an interest rate level of 10%. With that money, we're going to get rid of the border, do a great imperial census, see who's been living here in the past 7 years across the 10, the 50, and the 3, across the 63. Issue a new passport, do a great economic, financial, commercial inventory, create the 2 complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, the SSD Legion, the Imperial Integrated SSD Legion. And of course the SSD Legion, parallel with the Dancing Goddess Army, the 2 complementary covenant and cooperative public-private partnership institutions. That is of course what we have to do. We're going to get rid of the border, we're going to fuse, we're going to sign the new Imperial Republic Perpetual Imperial Republican Union. We're going to mass finance citizens' fitness, citizens' fitness. We're going to mass finance citizens' fitness. We're going to mass finance citizens to work out, and citizens to train, citizens to exercise, and citizens, of course, to do a workout. We're going to get rid of the border. We're going to create 44 mass tunnels, build 44 tunnels, mass tunnels, and of course we're going to create mass city tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. 44 mass city tunnels and city underground city subterranean cities, 44, but with tunnels, with massive tunnels, stretching tunnel like structured cities, 44 of them across Canada, United States, across the 63. In case of a thermonuclear war, we're going to mass finance tourism to establish a sovereign esprit de corps with the coming of our empire, which is going to have like two heads, two faces, like that N, which symbol which represents the pi of that circle. Not a pi as in an edible, but as in the pi as in the mathematical symbol which represents the relation of the circumference and with the circle. So we're going to mass finance fitness, build more hydroelectric dams, mass finance rebuilding, of course, of many mass centers of interconnected supercomputer centers and places where citizens can be integrated for security and service, for volunteering. And we're going to establish the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act in order for my brothers and sisters who lost their liberty to see who can build the 44 tunnels, and of course to implement the building of those tunnels, and coupled, of course, to build the hydroelectric dams, and of course to get, of course, the building of the hydroelectric dams, of course, to build it for now, and of course to also do all the informations where we have, of course, to do in our collective civilizational complex, the Imperial fusion, which we're going to constitute a coming Imperial Republican fusion. Together we have to implement the DRT and parallel the CIT and build this mass total surveillance for total security, total service and insurance of freedom across the 63, across the highways, the cities, and of course integrated with citizens, where via telescreen citizens can of course monitor and go have organized intra-tourist activities to establish strong esprit de corps with fellows across our coming empire, and of course in the esprit de corps type of situation. And that's what we're gonna do, implement the U. I'm just gonna stretch a bit before I go in the sun. Well, we're gonna get in the sun again, and that is the DRT. Oh yeah, it's a heat wave. We're gonna go right there at the benches and we're gonna hydrate, and we're gonna go hydrated. That's hot, 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 hot. Hot today in the sun. It is HOT, and we just got off from the mountain. You feel the difference when you go from there inside in the shade on the mountain to on the mountain. You see right away that it hits you, kind of getting in the hit side. And now when you get, of course, inside here, when you go outside, you get sun. So yeah, I gotta put that sunscreen in. I gotta tie my hair, because if I let my hair out with the mane out, I'm gonna be on it. But first I'm just gonna HYDRATE myself. That is, of course, the HUI, the Universal Exchange Unit, which we have to implement. And heat wave. Heat wave. Let's see if the water is still cold. No, but still drinkable. It's still drinkable. Oh yeah. So that was 710 milliliters, 710 milliliters. Gonna put on some sunscreen. Yeah, man, it's hot. Hot. Gotta put that sunscreen because off we go. That's it. Thank you to my anonymous friend for donating this, and this I gotta recycle. And off we go. Switch it up in a bit because we'll have a province, but now we got a good hydration, and we got those 710 mLs in, and we got some hydration before, so now we're good to go in the sun and get those glasses back on. This I got secondhand. I wear it already, so I'm auctioning it for a minute as I'm auctioning the underwear, the pants, and to give 50%, you know, half to my anonymous friend who gifted me these with that helicopter chopper. And now we're slowly descending down from Mount Royal. You check out the Belvedere, my favorite spot there. At the back of the Belvedere, bury me, a third of me there with Papa Crowley. Also a third of me in the city of the pyramids, a third of me at the back of the Belvedere. And these sunshade shades, gonna auction them for $1 million to give that half 50% to my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money. And yeah, I see some people made it. Some people made it. Some people didn't. Some people made it and other people did not. So that is just how we gonna rock and roll, and just how we ought to get on that prudent life, man, you know. That's just how you do it, and that's just how we love it, and that's just how we gotta get drilled, you know, for those little gets. X, Y, Z, and that's just how we manifest all our life, you know, together here in the complex. And you got some horses of the police there. I served in the SPVM, Service de Police de Ville in a past life when I met Louis Cyr, and I served in the Mounties. Sometimes I was born a man, a woman a man, and I'm gonna revise the DRT again before I switch to that French just one time. So the DRT stands for D, Debt, R, Refusion, T theory. The Debt Refusion theory integrates in it monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was implemented, integrated in the European Union back in the 90s. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my 10,000, your 10,000, all the public and the private debt. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the public and the private debt of the United States. All that money, we're gonna create a common currency with it, a common currency. So we're gonna create a common currency together, a common currency, which we're gonna call the UE. So that's gonna be a new central bank. We're gonna create a new central bank. We call it the Republican Central Bank. We're gonna issue the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, the U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit will have the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level of 10% on it. With that money, we're going to be able to rebuild the infrastructure of both Canada and the United States. We're going to get rid of the border. We're going to do a great economic, commercial, financial inventory. We're going to do a great census, Imperial Republican census for the 10, the 50, and the 63, which we're going to fuse via the DRT and the signing of new Imperial Republican Constitution Act. Of course, the king is absent. It's time for the Republic. We're going to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka the Imperial Integrated Dance League, the Imperial Integrated Dance League, the Imperial Integrated Dance League. That is to dance for the environment and for dancing. Dancing is my favorite sport, and for environmental education and action, to clean the streets, to clean the streets, to clean the roads, to do proper recycling, education, and action. Because it sometimes, every time I check into one of those recyclings or the public, of course, trash, public garbage, thank you sanitation workers and those picking up the recycling, I see some things that shouldn't go there. So as the individual sovereign, we gotta be encouraged and supported by the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army, for the environment, environmental action. And of course, for environmental action, we're gonna have, of course, to do environmental action in accordion, and of course environmental action we're gonna do, and of course clean the streets, we're gonna do the recycling, and with the integrated Imperial Integrated Security Service and Defense Legion, the SSD Security Service and Defense Legion, the SSD Security Service and Defense Legion, via the Citizen Integration Tier, we're going to integrate for total security, total service, total defense. We're going to do, of course, a mass public-private partnership. Of course, I need my brother citizen Bill Gates, to, of course, appellate and do, and of course to work together and to do the work together, which we have to get it done. The SSD legions, the SSD, the integrated SSD, and that is just something which we have to do. And we have to check out for my anonymous friend there. We got some water. Always something with, I guess, some machines, man. C'est tombé
Oui, ça s'est déroulé tout seul.
Ah ouais, ok.
Il va falloir que je l'attache. Il y a un problème.
C'est-tu de l'eau que vous avez dedans? Hein?
Oui.
Ah, ok, c'est juste de l'eau. Je pensais que c'était...
Il faut mettre l'engrais, mais au mois d'août, on arrête l'engrais.
Ah ouais, je trouve ça vraiment beau. Qu'est-ce que vous avez fait là-bas, là? Tu sais, en avant de...
Oui, au pavillon. Là.
Au pavillon, là, c'est vraiment beau, là. C'est... Chaque fois que je vais là, je dis, c'est vraiment beau.
Merci, ça...
Avec toutes les couleurs de même, là.
Ça fait de la
ouais,
couleur,
les couleurs, là, comme tu vois sur moi, j'aime ça.
les
Fait que...
couleurs.
Ah ouais.
Merci.
Salut, bon travail. Ciao, ciao. So that is my cousin there who get it on the go and gotta do a little slip there. It happens, and I thank them for what I said in French. I'm gonna switch to that French a bit, but I thank them a bit, of course, for they do a little bit of that rock and roll, you know, to get it on that, and let's get it on that go, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. It's something which we have to get doing, and we have to get doing, but it's something which we have to get rock and roll. I thank for that in the front there. That's so nice, and that is something which we have to get doing with that, and something which we have to get doing like that for the go. So something which we have to get drilling on the go, and we have to get on that rock and roll, you know. Something which we have to get doing, you know. So something which I love, and something which they appreciate, that somebody appreciates, and is the public workers, you know. And I just asked if it fell down, because sometimes if they need some help, you know, I'm always willing to give a hand if I can, in any way, shape, or form. If there's at risk, somebody is at risk, or to put them back on, you know. I wondered, but think my cousin was fine there. So what I said in French was I gave a little bit of a congratulation, you know, for that love side of things, for that love side of, we gotta get it on that drill, see? That's what it is with that, and that's how I gotta rock and roll it. So that's right there, what I congratulated on those flower spots. That's very nice there in front, so I said that they did a good job with that and the plants, and I love it, and they're part of the public park of the city, and it's always something which I love to do, and I consider them my cousins, my aunties, and of course I'm neurodivergent, so interaction socially can sometimes be more different and weird a bit, but yeah, you know, I try to build bridges, and we gotta build bridges because I'm not antagonistic, and you know, I wouldn't know if somebody's interested, but friends with benefits only for me, you know. I'm not looking specifically, but I wouldn't mind to have friends with benefits if you're a man, and if you're a man or you're a woman, and whatever you are, you wanna do that loving, we do that good loving together, you know. Black, white, man, woman, and rainbow, and that's what I said, that beauty there, see? That's a beauty. So it's right in front there. So that is a very beautiful little garden there in front of on the flowers, you know. That's what I congratulated them and said I appreciate that. Wow, that's really nice. See there, in front of the flowers there. See, look, that is super nice. Yeah, so that's just how we drill it, and that's just how we go it, and that's just how we do it with that. And yeah, switch a little French now because we're in la belle province, and we made a great linguistic compromise, and that is just something which you have to do, and something which you have to appellate together, you know. So yeah, it's French now, as we in la belle province. Bienvenue, fait que je descends de la montagne, je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique québécois. C'est la canicule, encore une fois, c'est la deuxième fois. Hier aussi, j'ai jamais vu auparavant 35 degrés sur mon téléphone dans sur la météorologie, ça disait que c'est 35 degrés quand je suis parti de chez nous. Fait que je dis waouh, 35 degrés, c'est quelque chose que j'ai jamais vu sur mon téléphone avant. Tu sais, je m'en souviens, mais sur l'ancien téléphone, j'ai juste vu 33, là, mais j'ai jamais vu 35. Fait qu'il paraît qu'on a cassé, brisé pas mal de records. Puis ces temps-ci, on brise des records quasiment au quotidien. C'est sûr que ça arrive plus souvent, là, mais c'est sûr que c'est quelque chose que moi, personnellement, j'ai jamais vu sur mon téléphone 35 degrés. J'ai toujours vu 30, 31, 32, 33, je pense maximum, même sur mon vieux téléphone, il y a 2 ans, il y a 3 ans, dans la COVID, la canicule, mais 35, j'ai jamais vu ça aujourd'hui, puis hier, j'ai vu ça pour la première fois, je pense, 35 degrés, puis c'est ça que, avec les autres facteurs d'humidité, puis tout ça, je pense que ça sent un peu plus. Fait que, il faut qu'on reste hydraté, fait que l'hydratation, c'est super important, parce que c'est sûr qu'avec cette canicule qu'on vient de vivre, moi aussi, bien sûr, l'entraînement physique, c'est quelque chose que moi, ça me dérange pas vraiment, c'est tant que je m'hydrate, mais moi aussi, bien sûr, ça en fait un changement, ça m'affecte quand même. Hier, j'ai transpiré comme j'ai jamais transpiré auparavant dans mes marches, puis aujourd'hui, bien sûr, que je viens déjà de transpirer pas mal, sauf que quand je suis rentré dans la forêt, sur la montagne, le Mont-Royal, c'est ça, ça a toujours changé un peu. J'ai remarqué un changement, c'était quand même un changement important, au point du changement du soleil, de la rue, quand je m'en allais à la montagne, puis là, quand je suis rentré dans la forêt, la montagne, ça a diminué d'un couple de degrés, tout de suite, je l'ai senti. Fait qu'aujourd'hui, on est le 12 août 2025, je suis sur la marche. Je m'en vais voir si j'ai un budget pour acheter des hamburgers pour dîner. C'est sûr que je suis en crise financière, mais je vais acheter pour moi et mon ami pour avoir un dîner d'hamburger. Peut-être sûrement chez... Je vais pas dire chez où, hein? Je vais laisser ça deviner, mais c'est sûr que je vais acheter ça, les hamburgers en spécial, pour pas dépenser trop d'argent. Fait que c'est sûr que je vais me limiter à une certaine dépense. On est le 12 août, fait que je dois commencer avec ma gratitude. J'ai payé mon loyer pour le mois d'août. On est le 12 août 2025. J'ai payé ma facture d'électricité. J'ai payé mon téléphone. Fait que c'est 3 factures qui sont payées. C'est sûr que moi, je fais ce que je fais quand même au quotidien d'une manière... J'ai un rituel, hein? J'ai une routine rituelle à cause de cette condition neurologique dont je suis atteint. soit l'Asperger's, l'autisme hautement fonctionnel. Fait que c'est ça que de cette manière je suis différent. Puis regardez le castor. C'est un castor là, que vous êtes. Un castor, hein? C'est des castors qui mangent tranquille. Il me dit même pas bonjour, c'est pas grave. Puis c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que faut qu'on fasse attention. Ici sur la montagne, on a de la flore, de la faune. Fait que c'est sûr qu'il faut avoir toujours des certaines conditions qu'on respecte l'environnement le plus qu'on peut là, le faire. C'est ça. Des fois, c'est sûr que on parle des choses comme des poches, là, ça peut sortir que vous allez sur la forêt puis vous échappez un mouchoir ou quelque chose. Là. C'est sûr que je dois te donner le bénéfice du doute quand même. Là. C'est sûr qu'à chaque fois je vais, j'en ramasse quelque chose puis je le jette. Bon. Là, je vais pas trop parler de l'Asperger, juste un peu. Vous savez que, encore une fois, mardi passé, c'est exactement une semaine, j'avais discuté avec un citoyen dans un supermarché. J'ai dû faire le travail de travailler sur les caractéristiques puis certaines choses du point de vue social que nous, les Asperger, c'est plus difficile pour nous de comprendre puis de faire. Puis bien sûr, c'est pour ça qu'il faut qu'on travaille pour bâtir des ponts, soit des petits ponts, des ponts moyens, des ponts larges ou extra larges. C'est sûr que dans ces 4 catégories, là, comme quand vous commandez un café ou quand vous commandez des frites ou des choses comme ça, c'est sûr que c'est dans ces 4 catégories que ça peut s'appliquer pour quand vous faites une commande pour un café moyen, large ou extra large, ou des frites, ça peut se paraître aussi comme pour des frites, là, un café dans un de café, ou ça peut être pour la nourriture aussi, là, ou pizza aussi, ça peut être un petit pizza moyen, large, extra large, là, ça peut s'appliquer pour la nourriture, tu sais. C'est des choses qui me font bien sûr dans ce point de compromis, bien sûr, pour avoir bien sûr une compréhension, pour savoir bien sûr qu'on bâtit bien sûr ses caractéristiques, qu'on bâtit toujours ces ponts, puis que toujours je dois faire le travail pour bien sûr bâtir ces ponts avec vous. Les neurotypiques, c'est des petits ponts, des moyens ponts, des ponts plus larges, des ponts plus extrêmes de largeur, plus gros, là, extra large, tu sais. Puis ça dépend de l'individu. Puis nous, les aspis, on n'est pas beaucoup, il n'y a pas beaucoup dans le monde. On est vous êtes les neurotypiques, vous constituez 99,56. 99,56. 99,56. 99,56. Hein? Fait que nous, les aspis, on est 0,44%. Fait qu'on constitue une petite minorité, hein. Il n'y en a pas il n'y a pas beaucoup d'aspis là, dans le monde. Les Aspergers, on est 0,44%. Moins de la moitié, moins d'1%, tu sais. 0,44%, c'est sûr que c'est pas beaucoup de gens qui sont atteints. C'est sûr que c'est pas une maladie. Puis comme j'ai dit l'autre jour, je vais mettre ça dans le recyclage, là. Ici, chaque fois que je regarde dans un recyclage, c'est des choses qui devraient aller dans la poubelle. Puis quand je regarde dans la poubelle, c'est des choses qui devraient aller dans le recyclage. Fait que je vous encourage, tu sais. Faites votre dû, l'individu puis le citoyen, il faut qu'on fasse le dû pour le collectif aussi. Parce que si moi je le fais pas, vous le faites pas, puis là, ben qu'ils le font pas, c'est sûr qu'il va y avoir plus de personnes qui vont pas le faire. Fait que bien sûr, le plus de monde qui le font pas, le plus de monde qui le font pas, si moi je sais pas, il faut qu'on fasse notre part, tu sais, de distinguer dans le fond entre que un c'est pour le recyclage, puis l'autre c'est pour les poubelles. Puis j'en vois souvent là, que des choses qui devaient être dans le recyclage, ça va dans la poubelle, puis vice-versa. Fait que tu sais, ça nuit à l'environnement, ça nuit au travail. On va voir, on regarde ensemble. OK, ça, c'est pas mal vide, là, mais tu sais, si on regarde déjà, c'est pas mal vide. Les deux ils ont été vidés récemment, fait que c'est sûr que ça s'applique moins dans ce cas-là. Mais bon, juste faites votre part, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut bien sûr qu'on encourage aussi. On doit distribuer des pamphlets là, publics, là, même mensuellement, là, pour que les citoyens font dans le public. Faites attention, jetez au bac, juste pour une révision en anglais et en français. Je pense que ça vaudrait la peine là, de faire ces choses-là, bien sûr, pour la faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de vue, qu'on doit le faire nous, puis moi, puis vous, puis nous ensemble, tu sais, en tant que citoyen indépendant, citoyen souverain, qui maintenant, je suis dans le public, fait que j'ai des responsabilités additionnelles que si j'aurais resté chez nous, j'aurais pas eu les mêmes responsabilités additionnelles, tu sais. j'aurais pas eu les mêmes responsabilités, tu sais, que j'aurais resté chez nous dans ma grotte. Fait que l'Asperger, c'est une condition de neurodivergence, je le dis parce que la semaine passée, je ne sais pas s'il était un citoyen ou non, là, mais l'important, c'est qu'on avait une discussion, puis là, moi-même, j'ai pris un pas de recul parce qu'une des caractéristiques de l'Asperger, c'est qu'on se rapproche trop proche des gens. Quand on discute, tu sais, l'espace personnel de 2-3 pieds, là, à coupe d'un mètre et demi, là, quoi que ce soit, on a tendance à briser ça. Fait qu'on a tendance de s'approcher proche de 2-3 pouces, tu sais, proche du visage ou proche du corps quand on discute. Parce que c'est encore une fois, c'est une norme non écrite de la société. Il rend plus difficile. C'est notre cerveau, il y a certaines mutations qui font que on est différent de comment on voit le monde. Fait que ces mutations, ces petites mutations, c'est sûr que c'est comme des micropuces, des transistors. C'est des petits, là, au petit niveau, tu sais, au niveau microscopique, tu sais. C'est sûr que c'est pas gros, c'est pas visible sur le corps, c'est pas visible sur le crâne, tu sais. À l'extérieur, je pense, c'est à l'intérieur du crâne, c'est à l'intérieur du cerveau que ces mutations se passent du point de vue de mutation à petit niveau. C'est microscopique. Bon, c'est ça. Fait que, puis la cause de l'Asperger, c'est pas connu exactement qu'est-ce qui cause l'Asperger. C'est pas héréditaire à 100%. C'est pas héréditaire, bien sûr, puis c'est possible que ça soit à cause de l'environnement aussi. Fait que la cause, il n'y a pas de conclusion sur la cause. Ça peut être une combinaison héréditaire, biologique ou génétique, là, qu'on appelle peut-être génétique, point de vue de la génétique, là, les gènes, l'hérédité, là, ou l'environnement. Fait qu'il n'y a pas de conclusion à 100% ce qui cause l'Asperger. Qu'est-ce qu'on sait, c'est bien sûr les caractéristiques. Il n'y a pas de médicaments parce que c'est pas une maladie. Fait qu'on on peut pas donner des médicaments pour, encore une fois, parce que c'est pas une maladie. On donne pas des médicaments, tu sais. Parce que c'est pas une maladie. Puis il y a la semaine passée, justement, je sais pas si c'est un citoyen ou non, mais on avait une discussion, puis j'avais mentionné à un moment donné que j'ai cette condition, puis elle a dit « Ah ouais, je connais la maladie. » Fait que moi, j'ai dit « Non, c'est pas une maladie. » Puis là, j'ai continué à dire « Ah ouais, c'est une maladie, là. » Puis j'ai dit « Non, c'est pas une maladie. » Fait que là, il s'est autocorrigé, puis elle a dit « Ah ouais, c'est pas une maladie. » On parlait en anglais, là, par exemple. C'est pas une maladie, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Fait que je dis oui, exactement. C'est pas une maladie, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Puis on n'a pas vraiment des symptômes comme une maladie, même si les gens utilisent des symptômes. C'est des caractéristiques qui se prononcent des fois d'une manière que ça peut paraître que l'individu qui a l'Asperger, moi-même incluant moi-même, là, qu'on est différent, qu'on peut être un peu étrange, bizarre, nos comportements un peu bizarres ou étranges dans ce point de vue d'être différent parce qu'on voit le monde différemment. Fait que nous, on en a force quand même, puis ça, ces forces-là se retrouvent d'habitude autour et quand on est impliqué dans ce qu'on appelle les intérêts obsessifs. Sauf que moi-même, j'utilise pas le terme obsessif parce qu'une obsession, c'est plus pour vous, les neurotypiques, les 99,56%. Car moi, là, quand je m'implique, je m'interne au quotidien, bien sûr, dans l'analyse de la géopolitique, dans l'analyse, l'étude de l'analyse, puis bien sûr, les théories, puis le développement des stratégies de la géopolitique, c'est comme naturel. Puis même si je perds comme je me perds, je peux passer des heures sans me rendre compte que j'étudie, je fais ça, j'étudie, puis je regarde les émissions télé, puis je regarde les nouvelles d'ailleurs, les nouvelles d'ici, d'ailleurs, d'autres pays, du Mexique, des États-Unis, de la gauche, de la droite, du centre, bien sûr, à travers les pays, même d'autres pays, d'autres mers, de l'Europe, de la Chine, de l'Inde, que ce soit. Parce que la géopolitique, c'est mondial, c'est global. Quand on parle de la géopolitique, là, ça rentre plus du niveau politique, socio-culturel, domestique. Fait que dès qu'on fait mention de la géopolitique, il faut toujours qu'on place le Québec, Canada, le Québec dans le Canada, bien sûr. C'est une discussion géopolitique, quand même, parce qu'ici, au Québec, nous, on a fait ce que j'appelle le grand compromis linguistique du français. Fait qu'on continue à le faire, mais il faut que je le fasse moi aussi en tant qu'individu. Si moi je le fais pas, je fais pas l'effort pour parler en français, puis j'encourage pas les gens peut-être à écouter quelque chose de culturel du Québec. Puis tu sais, il y a bien de la culture, là. C'est pas juste Louis C, puis c'est pas juste Céline Dion que je mentionne souvent, là, mais c'est sûr qu'on a bien dit de la culture, puis bien des émissions, puis bien des émissions culturelles, puis on a ben des films, puis on a ben de la culture, puis ben des cinémas, puis ben des films québécois qui sont bons, puis ben de la musique aussi, puis l'histoire aussi, mais l'histoire plus moderne, là, parce que c'est sûr que moi, quand j'étais né ici, hein, moi je suis mystique aussi, j'étais né homme, femme, des fois dans l'ancienne vie, les anciennes vies, prêtresse de la déesse. J'ai servi dans l'armée des États-Unis 2 fois, dans 2 guerres différentes qui étaient 156 ans à part. Et bien sûr, j'étais né femme ici. Entre 1688 et 1735, j'ai vécu en tant que femme ici. Fait que je crois des réincarnations moi-même. C'est un peu côté spirituel, mystique. Là. Vous n'allez pas me poser plein de questions de la spiritualité parce que mes réponses vont être peut-être un peu comiques, culturelles, puis pas mal rock'n'roll. Parce que c'est ça que je connais, le rock'n'roll, la géopolitique, l'entraînement physique, soit la danse. La danse, c'est le sport que je préfère, moi aussi. La danse... c'est le sport que je préfère. Fait que je préfère la danse comme sport, mais même si j'adore le basketball, le hockey, tout ce qu'il y a à faire avec l'entraînement physique, les pompes, l'entraînement physique par le cyclisme, bien sûr le tennis. Le tennis, c'est ça que ça soit, bien sûr. Que ça soit quelque chose comme ça, puis ça dit quelque chose comme ça, bien sûr que ça soit, bien sûr, dans ces compréhensions, qu'on soit, bien sûr, différent. Puis moi-même, je fais partie de la communauté LGBTQ, je suis androgyne pansexuel, et c'est beau, ça. Hey, c'est beau ça quand même. Je trouve ça beau. Je vais laisser là, peut-être quelqu'un va le prendre, là, mais c'est peut-être quelqu'un qui va le prendre. Bon, fait que c'est conscient mais je suis pas vraiment. Je suis pas à la recherche vraiment, là. Juste des amis avec bénéfice. Un des problèmes qu'on a visibles, nous, là, c'est qu'on n'a pas beaucoup d'amis. À cause de ces différences, tu sais. Puis nous, il faut nous le dire directement, des choses comme prendre distance, s'il te plaît, ou tu es trop proche un peu. Parce que nous, on ne sait pas vraiment, tu comprends? Ces choses-là de la société, il faut nous le dire. Juste me le dire, puis that's it, that's all. Puis nous, des fois, nous-mêmes, on est direct. On peut dire des choses qui peuvent offenser, on peut être direct, puis le taux de sans-emploi est très élevé chez nous. C'est trop, là. On ne peut pas accepter à 80, plus que 80% des aspects, là. Puis on constitue une petite minorité, on est sans emploi. Vous imaginez-vous, là, 80%, là? 80%, c'est énorme de la société. 80%, 4 sur 10, 8 sur 10. 8 sur 10, c'est énorme, bien sûr. C'est constitue une population, une minorité de la population. Bien, bien sûr, on est 4 sur 5. Tu sais, comprenez, là? Puis moi, j'ai eu bien de l'emploi. C'est juste les garder que c'est plus difficile. Garder ces emplois, pour moi, c'est plus difficile. Puis pour les aspects en général, c'est parce que des fois, tu sais, moi, je pourrais pas savoir si quelqu'un est intéressé, bien que je sois homme-femme, par exemple. Moi, je suis androgyne pansexuel. La seule affaire que vous soyez noir, blanc ou noir, bien, il faut que vous soyez 18 ans et plus, là, en consentement, puis l'âge adulte, c'est qu'est-ce que... Puis c'est sûr que je suis pas vraiment à la recherche, là. Je vais proposer encore un mariage à mon ami anonyme. Je vais essayer comme Joe Biden. J'ai eu déjà 2 noms, mais peut-être je vais commencer à demander, poser encore la question tant que je reçois un oui, là, comme Joe Biden, tu sais. Joe Biden, il a posé supposément à Jill, avant qu'il dise oui, il a posé la question de se marier 7 fois, je pense. 6 ou 7 fois, 6 ou 7. Bien, c'est sûr que ça va être un mariage spécial si je reçois le oui, là, parce que je suis androgyne pansexuel, là, mais je me cherche pas vraiment, là, j'ai des amis avec bénéfices. Puis mon seul stress vraiment en ce moment est financier, tu sais. Financièrement, tu sais, c'est juste ça que j'envisage comme stress. C'est juste ça que j'envisage, moi, comme mon stress est financier. Puis, bien sûr, je voulais faire l'amour, homme-femme, mais ça ne dérange pas, juste vous avez 18 ans, là. Puis moi, les aspects, c'est plus difficile. On va pas peut-être le savoir, tu sais, que vous êtes intéressé, là, vous avez un intérêt de cette romantique ou quoi que ce soit, là, les amis avec bénéfice ou même sexuel, là, comme je suis pas en manque, je suis frustré sexuellement, là, j'ai pas de frustration sexuelle en tant que telle, là. J'ai une bonne pratique, masturbation, là, quotidien, mon petit clitopénis, pénis-clito, 50-50, messieurs, madame, mais des fois ça va en fusée, mais c'est sûr que j'ai comme je dois aller voir un dermatologue, là, mais ça coûte 300$ que je peux pas me permettre, là, les 300$ pour y aller voir, parce que je suis allé voir là, comme 9 ans, là, 10 ans. Là. C'était quoi que j'ai comme une... C'est comme l'eczéma, comme du psoriasis, là, c'est comme une grosse plaie. Ça ressemble bien à de l'eczéma et du psoriasis, mais quand je suis allé, c'était pour les maladies transmises sexuellement, les STD. c'est les MTS, maladies transmises sexuellement, puis c'était négatif. Les maladies transmises sexuellement, puis c'était négatif. Les maladies transmises sexuellement, c'était négatif. Je pense que ça fait 9 ans, là. Puis en tout cas, fait, je sais pas, j'ai comme quelque chose qui gratte, là, qui pique. Je ne vais pas discuter trop de ça, là. J'en discute ouvertement, là. C'est pas quelque chose que... Vous ne pouvez pas m'espionner, là, mais... Là, je ne vais pas discuter de ça, je vais discuter de la TRD, parce que ça, c'est le plus important. Puis là, je vais discuter de la géopolitique, parce que je suis bon dans ça. Laissez les bagages chez vous, comme on dit, mais écoutez de la géopolitique, les protocoles, bien sûr que je vais dire, les informations que je vais vous partager en ce moment. Dans la géopolitique, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019, c'est mon intérêt spécial, puis je suis moi-même un analyste et théoricien en géopolitique indépendant. Qu'est-ce que j'ai prévu? C'est une conflagration internationale, un conflit, une troisième guerre mondiale. Qu'est-ce que je n'avais pas prévu, par exemple? C'est la détérioration des relations avec les États-Unis. Mais nous, là, il faut qu'on dise oui, puis là, l'affirmative, que le Québec, le Canada puis le Québec, que nous, là, il faut qu'on aille comme premier intérêt, en première place. Il faut qu'on se dirige vers avoir les meilleures relations économiques, financières, culturelles, socioculturelles avec les États-Unis. Vous comprenez? Ça, c'est notre intérêt fondamental principal, d'avoir les meilleures relations économiques, de défense, de sécurité avec les États-Unis. Fait que c'est nouveau pour moi aussi, cette détérioration des relations qui m'inquiète, à vrai dire, parce que depuis la semaine, ça fait depuis le 1er août, là, ça fait 2 semaines, ce vendredi, on est désigné comme une menace extraordinaire et hors commun par les États-Unis. Fait que ça, bien sûr, c'est nouveau, hein? Ça, c'est nouveau pour moi aussi, fait que je dois prendre ça en considération. Qu'est-ce qui est le plus important? C'est la TRD. Une solution, puis celle-là, c'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Et c'est un beau petit jardin ici. J'aime ça comment ils l'ont fait avec les pierres, puis les petites fleurs jaunes que j'aime ça. Bon, la TRD, c'est sûr que là, on n'a pas le choix de faire l'implémentation de la TRD dans le point, bien sûr, où la TRD, c'est la solution. Pourquoi je me prononce ici? Car et à cause que on a 4 problèmes. Ça majeur économique, ça s'applique aux États-Unis et aux Canadiens aussi, Québécois, Canadiens, Canadiens, Québécois, puis les États-Unis. Les problèmes qu'on a, c'est les prix augmentent, le coût de la vie augmente, les loyers aussi. Même mon loyer a augmenté entre 6 et 10, je dirais pas combien, je peux pas me plaindre moi-même, parce que quand même, c'est quelque chose que je peux pas me plaindre. Le coût de la vie, dans le fond, ça augmente. La stagnation des salaires, puis les cartes de crédit. Fait que ces 4 problèmes, dans n'importe quel ordre, font que ma TRD, c'est la solution, puis c'est une solution, puis une stratégie pour l'implémentation de la politique du Collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, le Collectif de Civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord. C'est sûr qu'on constitue un grand collectif, une civilisation qui émerge, qui n'est pas tout à fait diversifiée, mais qu'on a des distinctions avec l'Occident. Fait que nous, là, il faut qu'on ait les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Fait que là, de cette manière, puis ayant dire que les États-Unis aussi envers nous, c'est leur intérêt principalement fondamental, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, ensemble. TRD pour la création de l'UI, unité d'échange universelle. Donc la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000 de côte à côte, on va faire l'addition avec la dette publique des États-Unis, on va faire la création d'une banque centrale pour le Canada et les États-Unis, comme qu'on fait en Europe, mais avec nos réalités puis notre problème dès maintenant de la géopolitique internationale, puis des problèmes économiques qui touchent les États-Unis et le Canada ensemble. Fait que la création de l'UI, on va faire la création de nouvelles monnaies par en basant, bien sûr, toute la dette publique-privée, bien sûr, toute la dette public-privé ensemble. Fait que la création de l'unité d'échange universelle, UI, U point, U unité, point échange, U point universel, qui aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. On va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%. Avec ça, on va rebâtir l'infrastructure, bâtir les 44 villages souterrains, tunnels villages souterrains. On va financer les gens à l'entraînement physique. On va financer les gens au tourisme. On va faire un grand recensement. On va finir avec la frontière. On va faire la constitution impériale de la République, la nouvelle République impériale du Collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Prêtez allégeance, les gens, vous êtes famille. Soutenez mon rêve. Mon rêve est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé, bien sûr, qu'on va constituer ensemble dans ce domaine, maintenant qu'on va faire, bien sûr, dans ce domaine pour avoir, bien sûr, de cette confluence où qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, à vivre aujourd'hui dans ce complexe majeur pour la géopolitique qui s'en vient dans le futur et aujourd'hui, bien sûr, qui viendra avoir des prochains jours et semaines à venir.